what are some basic things that businesses can have? What about like, policies, procedures, checklist systems? Does that add much value?
It does. So now we're getting into the 6 Ps. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest reasons that businesses aren't sellable is because entrepreneurs have created themselves a job that they go to work at every day versus a business that actually works for them. And a business is dependent upon the owner. So people is the first P. You really got to make sure the business that you're working on the business, not in it. You got to make sure the business doesn't depend upon you. I'll give you 2 quick examples. I had a lady that called me from Texas. I know you're in Austin, Texas. She's in Dallas, Texas. Husband dropped out of a heart attack at the age of 40. Left her with a mountain of debt. She didn't know anything about the finances or about the business. Asked me if I could sell it. Started asking some questions. He has a construction company. He has no employees. He has subcontractors. Processes is what you just mentioned, Richard. And he had no processes. He had no policies. He had no nothing. All the data was in his head. When he died, the business died. Another example, I got a dentist. One dentist been in business, in practice for over 50 years. One dentist, same dentist that started the company. 3 dental hygienists. 3 dental hygienists are his daughters. And so when he leaves, the patients leave. I already told him, yes, we can sell the business, but we can't maximize it. And there's going to be contingencies in there to mitigate the buyer's risk, which means you and your daughters will have to stay over 2 to 3 years. And he said, well, honey, we're not staying. I said, well, then, honey, we're not selling. So you really got to look at your business, especially service businesses. You got to look at your business and ask yourself, can this company run without me? Can I take off for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and the business doesn't miss a beat? That's what you got to get to. Most business owners are working in their business. They have their finger in every pie. And you really got to separate that. And you got to focus on your strengths, hire your weaknesses, make sure you get the right people in the right seats, and ask the who question. Who handles customer service, marketing, legal, manufacturing, distribution, logistics? The list goes on and on. But you want to make sure that you have a who in every seat. So you're working on the company, not in it. If you're working on the company, in all likelihood, you're not going to maximize value and you will have to stay on for a few years. And larger businesses will have to sell a percentage and still retain equity in which to give the buyer peace of mind.
How do you know if your business is at the maximum possible automation point? Are you what's that look like? Is the person just speaking with their CEO once a month and going over numbers, or is it okay if the person still spends like an hour or 2 a week talking to key personnel? Is that systematized enough?
Yeah, that's systematized enough for sure. We have an electrical company that we're selling in the 40 to 50 million range. And he has 3 divisions, 2 facilities, $7 million in EBITDA, and he works about 8 to 10 hours a week. That's pretty systematized. However, buyers are still weary and buyers are wanting to, we've gotten several LOIs, all for buying 80% of the business. He doesn't want to sell 80%, he wants to sell 100%. The one thing that he hasn't done that he needs to do a better job at is really identifying who will be those leaders, who will take over when he's not there, who can carry on. And that's something that's really, really important going forward. Even if you're only working a few hours in the business, you want to make sure you always have a next in line. Who can take over for you? Who can, be that visionary and do what you do? Because the one thing that's so scary to buyers is coming into a company where they feel like that owner, even though they only work a few hours a week, that owner still is visible in that business, and that owner is still, in charge of the vision. Does that make sense?
I own my own company as well. It seems like, I don't know, can you get it in one person? And I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but I'm just, really passionate and interested in my business. So I have that passion, I have that interest. I also have to lead it. Is it possible to get that in one person that's your replacement, or do you have to break up your role into a couple different roles in order for it to continue?
So that depends. I mean, that's a good question, but it's going to depend. On this particular example, the electrical company, it's 3 different people because he has an industrial division, he has an electrical division, and he has an engineering division. So he's got a key person in industrial and electrical. Those two people can take over their divisions, and then he has a CFO. So you're looking at 3 people to really take over for one person who's working 10 hours a week. So it really depends upon what your roles are, what you do in the business, who's the closest person. I mean, there's just so many different factors. That's a hard question to answer without knowing the business in its entirety.